So Dwayne shows up in a hoodie, and we're wondering if you're going to go as a hacker for Halloween.
Isn't that cute?
I don't think anybody would believe it.
No, they probably wouldn't. You don't look like a hacker. You look like a very nice hacker.
Oh, that's nice. Wait till I put on my dark hoodie.
He's a nice boy.
That's what they say right before they talk about the cannibalism. You always look like such a harmless person.
Well, it's Halloween season. How you doing, guys?
Very spooky.
Yeah.
I got somebody down my street who takes it very seriously.
Yeah.
They have a demolition derby car with the 3 witches from Hocus Pocus.
Oh, that's awesome.
On top. It looks fantastic. It looks fantastic.
We actually just watched that the other night.
I used to do up Halloween when my kids were little. In fact, my best gag, well, I did a couple of really good gags if you want to know, but the first one, I hid in a pile of leaves right by the door, swept up a big pile of leaves, and I was in the leaves. And I put a red finger paint on a white cardboard. With my finger, I wrote in red, "Angry Leaves." And I just put it by the door. I didn't say, "Beware the angry leaves," just angry leaves. And, I couldn't see anything, of course, but I'd hear, "What's that?" It says "Angry Leaves." "Oh, there's a guy in there." "No, there isn't." And then like rustle a little. And they're like, "Ah!"
That was the first phishing attack.
You're right. No, the
Very
best
low
one.
Tech.
The best one was I got this big mask, so it's like a troll mask, but it goes from the top of your head down to your belly, like the beard is at your belly, and you're looking out the nostrils. Like that's how big this thing is. And I put on a sweater, long pants, gloves, so that there was no exposed skin. And I like stuffed leaves in my pants and my shirt and stuff, and the leaves coming out. And I slumped over in a lawn chair.
So you look like a mannequin.
Yeah, I look like a stuffed guy. I look like a stuffed guy anyway. But I look like somebody stuffed a bunch of leaves in some clothes, put a mask on it, and then a bowl of candy in my lap with a sign that says, "Please take one."
Free hugs.
Yeah. Yeah, and so of course I couldn't really see anybody, but I could hear them, and I just remember these 2 teenage girls coming, or preteens or whatever, coming, and they're like, "There's a guy in there." "No, there isn't." "Well, then you take a piece of candy then." "I'm not going to take a piece of candy. You take a piece of candy." "No, all right, I'm going to. All right, here I go." And I'm like not breathing. I'm like,
you're not getting the first one. You want the second one.
No.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. See, there's nobody in there. And then the second one, "Rah!" And I literally jumped up and, "Rah!" and I just heard him take off like, "Ah!"
That's awesome. The weird part is it was July. So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about what happened this week. There's so many items, so many stories. I think there's like 7 or 8 stories. So many that
how many every week? Every week.
Yeah, I don't know what to call them. I mean, they are kind of disjointed. So we'll just keep our thinking cap going as we
How about the bad day for Microsoft Windows? We usually start there.
Well, we had one called Microsoft had a bad week or something like that. Not a good week for Microsoft, but I don't know. We'll just
patches.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the first one, Dwayne. What do you got for us?
So I think the first one's pretty poignant. Candy. Someone decided to ransomware a candy company. Who does that? Honestly. Yes. Major U.S. candy maker targeted by ransomware attack. Ferrara, the U.S. candy maker behind some of America's most popular candies, was hit with ransomware. Which is, God. This is their busy season right now. This is the important time for them to be pumping out candy.
So how come I haven't heard of Ferrara? Now, keep in mind, I'm a ketogenic diabetic, right? So I don't eat candy, but...
So just looking at the picture of these candies right now is raising your...
So Sweet Tarts, Smarties, Nerds.
Yep. All right. So not chocolates per se. Oh, Chuckles. I see them.
Your Willy Wonkas, your...
Your Oompa Loompas. if you will.
So it's interesting that this comes out now with, like I said, it's their busy season, and they're trying to pump out as much candy as possible. And the company says, even though the ransomware attack seems to be successful. Oh, wait, they're also Laffy Taffy Red Hots,
Okay,
Atomic
we get
Fireballs,
the idea. Yeah.
which are fantastic.
All the non-chocolate candy.
Well,
all
and
the
all this-
non-chocolate candies. That
All
you
the
get
stuff
in
that
the
you
bottom of
just all the stuff that you just take a handful out of the bowl and dump into your pumpkin.
that you trade with your siblings for
before the leaves of
chocolate.
the troll attack you.
But they see even though they've been ransomware, they're still pumping out as much candy as possible. So they're good. We're good. Halloween was saved.
That's a business that probably doesn't depend on electronics for their manufacturing.
So that's an interesting question. I mean, how could you be a company in this day and age and not have? I mean, unless all of their production facilities and supply lines and all that good stuff are entirely on a separate network, and this was an administrative network. I mean, there's not a lot of detail here.
Yeah, we
This
don't
is
know
from
how
an
much.
article on the Hill.
We don't know how much, for example.
Well, whenever Dwayne and I have worked together, which is several times and places over the decades, we've always had segregated networks. So I could conceive of some of the companies we've worked for where they get owned by ransomware on the production network with, operations and executives, and it won't touch development or QA or anything else.
And that might be a foreign concept to our listeners. I thought a network was a network. Well, when your only network is the internet, yeah, you have the world on your network, but networks can be separated so that there isn't any cross-contamination, if you will. Like people on network A can't see the printers or the computers on network B. And that's the way most companies operate.
Well, bigger companies, but smaller companies can operate that way as well to mitigate risk. So there's nothing that says you can't put, development should always be on its separate network because they tend to do things that are crazy.
Yeah, we don't like developers.
QA should be in a separate network. Whatever you can segregate in that way. But remember, it's inconvenient. And inconvenience is the friend of security.
Yeah.
No.
So
it's something a lot of companies don't do, but it's not a bad idea because you end up with this situation where, some office worker, some information worker who does accounting clicked on the wrong thing and owned the network, but it didn't stop manufacturing because there's no reason for the manufacturing to be on the same network.
Sure. I have this issue in my band, believe it or not, because at the studio, at the studio, I have a network that has access, a guest network that has access to the internet, and I have a network where my computers are on, but also the thing we were talking about last week, which is this device that works as a mixer. It also has a network interface, and it has its very own Wi-Fi thing, access point, but it's just for talking to the mixer. It's not on the internet. And I'm constantly with the musicians. It's like, hey, how come my phone doesn't work? It's like, because you're connected to the freaking mixer, it doesn't have an internet connection. So
does it have an ability for you to set up reservations so that you can just only allow devices that need to connect to it to connect to it?
Well, any device can connect to the Wi-Fi hotspot, but then you have permissions inside the mixer itself where you can say this person can control this mix and that person can control their mix and yada yada.
So IoT and Internet of Things devices are still fairly immature, but that's where we're going to end up going, which is if they have a Wi-Fi hotspot, one of the best practices would be to allow you to configure it so that only devices that need to connect to it would ever connect to it. Because otherwise it's a way for a hacker to get in and use that connection as a way to try to, exploit the device.
Right. So you have security at the access point level, and then you have security at the device level too. Permissions beyond that. Yeah. Both should be used. But, then of course the other problem is we're on a gig and the bass player gets a new phone and, 5 seconds before we're supposed to start, I got a new phone. It's
like great.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Yeah, can you set me up real quick?
Yeah, can you set me up real quick? Meanwhile, the audience is waiting for downbeat.
All right.
Nothing against my bass player. He didn't actually do that. It was a hypothetical scenario. So, Nick, if you're listening, it wasn't
the tambourine player. It's always the tambourine player.
Tambourine. Yeah, like I hire a tambourine player.
just whoever followed you in the door. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Last groupie in the back.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, does your band need a tambourine player? Because I need a gig.
I'm sure that happens so often.
Yeah.
So often.
All right. So from candy to what? Should we go to YouTube?
Let's go to YouTube.
This was scary for me. So YouTubers' accounts got hijacked with cookie stealing malware. And the reason that this is scary to me is because, YouTube is Google. And you sign into YouTube as a content creator with your Google Gmail password and whatever, your Google account. And so if you have Gmail, you also have Drive. And Drive is a place where a lot of people that use Gmail, it's like the Dropbox of Google. And so if you have Drive, people tend to put stuff up there, all their documents, right? So just by think about how dangerous it is if somebody hacked your Google account, your Gmail account, which is what they did here.
Yeah.
They have access to your entire life if you're a Googler.
Well, let's be clear. What they did is they phished these people and got them to click on something they weren't supposed to click on, or download something they weren't supposed to download, or go to some place they weren't supposed to go.
Yeah.
So that's the same vector for ransomware, for infection of your computer.
But there's a couple interesting things in this article. First off, they to get so many people to target specific YouTubers. So it wasn't like, hey, we're just going to blast, every YouTube person and see if somebody clicks on it.
Yeah.
They really wanted to find content creators, people who had a lot of following.
Mm-hmm.
So there was literally a hacker for hire ads that went out on Russian forums looking for people who wanted to participate to highly target certain YouTube streamers, which is a weird market, because then you can just apparently advertise for people to do malicious and mean things. But the second thing that's interesting is the evolution of security here, right? So we talk about really strong passwords, and people had terrible passwords. We talk about people having really strong passwords now, and then as we move to really strong passwords, people start then using those passwords all over the place. And they say, okay, well, really strong passwords, we really need more than just a password. So you need multi-factor authentication.
Yeah.
So now they move to multi-factor. And in this case, these particular streamers had strong passwords potentially and multi-factor authentication. So you go, okay, cool. They're following the recommendation. So what happened here, right? And this comes down to the cookie stealing part. Once you hit a website and you log in with your username and your password, and then you use your Google Authenticator or your SMS text message authenticator or whatever you used as your 2FA, your multi-factor authentication, you're going to get something from the website that comes down to your computer that says this person's authenticated. It's okay to talk to them.
Yeah.
Token, effectively.
You get a token, right? A cookie, right, that holds that information for that session.
A visitor's badge.
Exactly. Yeah, I like it.
Right.
And in this particular situation, because these YouTube streamers have been compromised by going to a site or downloading a piece of evaluation, game software, whatever it may be, right? They were constantly listening for these token cookies. So they don't need the username and password or the MFA device, right? They don't need your Google Authenticator or anything like that. They can literally just take this cookie while it's live and then use it to be you, right? To pretend to be you on the site.
Interestingly enough, the bleepingcomputer.com story has a great big ad for Google Ads.
Makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense. Hey, you're reading about how Google got hacked, and or not Google, but Googlers got hacked. Let's do some positive reinforcement here, some electronic damage control.
Yeah, and the how widespread this was. I mean, Google identified 1,011 domains linked to these attacks, roughly 15,000 actor accounts specifically created for this campaign.
Wow.
This was definitely very highly targeted.
Well, I also read in this article that some of these were sold for as much as $4,000 for an individual account on the dark web.
Yeah, which that's pretty impressive. I guess it depends on how many people are following them and what they plan on doing with that account. But
so let me understand this. I thought they were only breached while they were connected.
So it depends. I would assume it depends on how often you have your authenticator authenticate you, right? So there's tons of times I can say, hey, this authentication session is good for the next month, and then re-authenticate me. If I steal that cookie, it's good for a month, so it's not going to expire. So it really just depends.
to the IP address making the request?
You would think, but with the popularity of VPNs nowadays,
right? But
where
at least, but at least for that session,
sure, yeah,
maybe that's.
Although
I
jump around on VPNs all the time.
I know, and we should punish you for that.
Although you know what I heard is a really great way to get around a VPN if you're trying to hack somebody on a local network.
Not from experience, I assume.
No. I was everybody knows about IPv4, and that's what you're using to route over the VPN. But if you use IPv6, that's not routing.
Nobody even knows what IPv6 is. I mean, that's like the big yawn, isn't it? In IT.
Carl, it was rolled out 30 years ago.
I know that, but I mean, of course, the problem is that it's like 99% unnecessary in most situations because we have NAT routing, and now I realize that people's eyes are rolling in their heads.
Yeah.
But
so let's talk about this for a second.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So if you're technical enough to know what an IP address is, you've seen them for sure. 192.136.5.7, those kinds of numbers. When the internet was first rolled out, IP version 4 was used, and it had 4 billion addresses potentially. Some of them were allocated for experimentation and different things, but 4 billion addresses. And it was like Bill Gates' famous quote, who would ever need more than 640 kilobytes of RAM? We never thought we'd run out, but we did. And before NAT became popular, before network address translation, which allows us to kind of fake whole huge networks.
Right.
There was a real concern. We were about to run out of network addresses. And so IP6 started getting rolled out and supported. And then suddenly the world didn't need the solution.
Put firewalls in.
Yeah. We don't need these. So network address translation, let's say you have a cable modem, right? You have your cable provider, and you have a public IP address. It's not going to be 127.0.0.1 because that is a local IP address. It doesn't route over the internet. Everybody has that. That's your home address, but it's going to be something
allocated to
you and just you. You're not sharing that. Well, okay,
but it might be a NAT.
It might be their NAT, but okay. But it's your public IP address. So then what happens is, all right, now I've got all these computers on my network and they all need to be on the internet. So they all need their addresses too. No. So in comes NAT, network address translation, and says, okay, behind everybody who's behind our NAT router gets a unique address, 192.168.0. Whatever. Now I've got 250
fake address, if you will.
Yeah, fake address. Now I've got up to 255 addresses behind that particular router. And you can just add another router and have a different subnet, 10.0.1. whatever. So that's how we got around it with NAT. But IP6, instead of having that, 1 byte scenario.
4 numbers, dotted decimal notation.
Yeah, dotted decimal notation. Gives you a unique identifier. We talked about these before. GUIDs or GUIDs, global unique identifier. It's a string with a lot of numbers, letters, and dashes in it that is supposedly unique in the world every time you create a new one. Yeah. And so that becomes your IP address, making IP addresses, functionally unlimited.
So the IP version 4 has 4 billion possible addresses. IP version 6 has more than a billion possible addresses.
So a Carl Sagan number.
Right.
Billions.
Makes them functionally unrememberable too.
There you go. And also very hard for you to, talk when you're talking to a tech and they say, what's your IP address? Now you have to find a way to get it to them. And the whole reason that you're on the phone with the tech is because your internet is down. So you can't email it. What do you take a picture of it and text it to the tech?
Turn it into a little song.
It's a real problem.
5, 4, 2, 3, 7,
Yeah,
9.
exactly. You're not going to sit there and read an IP6 address over the phone.
But what Dwayne's saying is that the tools have to support them, but they don't support them at the end of their functionality. It's not a primary use case. So there are fringe use cases. And so one of the ways you can get around lots and lots of different detections is to make sure you use an IP version 6 IP, which is pretty easy to do. It's just a setting.
Yeah. And you can just turn it on usually in your network stack and everything's happening.
I would venture to say most people should turn it off.
I do
you're
too.
Not using IPv6 for any particular
because it's a
reason.
threat vector if you don't need it. Yeah. All right. So I got the next story here. This is,
right.
You remember that Twitch story, that massive Twitch hack?
Never mind.
Yeah, never mind. Gizmodo
Not
published.
a big deal.
Yeah, Gizmodo published this story. That massive hack really wasn't that bad, y'all. We swear.
Well, what are they taking back
response.
that they're all their code was stolen?
Oh,
No.
They
just
said,
downplayed it.
Listen, all of our code was stolen. How much all of the streamers are making,
But
was
it wasn't
stolen.
good code.
all of the information about the users, internal documents was
Yeah.
all stolen, but nobody got passwords, so it's not a big.
Yeah, it's no big
It's
deal.
fine.
It's basically damage control from Twitch. Yeah.
There were some eye-opening numbers in there. I know Critical Role. I follow Critical Role. It's a role-playing Twitch streaming site, and they do a fantastic job. But they're pulling in, I think it was like $10 million over a couple of years. So it was interesting to see how much some of the streaming people are making on that site.
All right. What's the next story?
You know what? I want to talk about Field Effect.
Okay.
Field Effect. So, security researcher out of Ottawa, called Field Effect. They were doing a little bit of research, just poking around, just poking at a system. Didn't know what it did, just doing things to it, and they found 7 zero-day vulnerabilities. Just tripped over 7 zero-day vulnerabilities in Windows.
Wow.
For those of you who haven't been listening to the podcast, 0 days are ones that have not been patched.
Now the patch just came out.
6 of these privilege escalations. So that means you're a lowly user with no privileges and you can jump straight up to system or administrative access. And they're in some of the lowest level parts of the system, like the NTOS kernel.
Oh my. Not good.
They found them all in 1 week.
Okay,
and
and
it
these
affects billions of computers.
and this was a cyber security company. You said, did you say that it was built by former spies?
Yes, yeah, I did not say that, but you're right. So this was a company built by former spies, who is now, and it's ironic that they've just discovered these things, just saying, hey, within a week we found 7 0 days, which on the open market, honestly, if you were to go sell these on the dark web and tell nobody about them, because they've existed in Windows since 2007.
Oh my God.
Right? Yeah. So when we talk about things like Stuxnet and some of the really high-end threat actor, attacks that have happened, a lot of those are using 1, 2, 3 0 days.
So for all the
7
script
0
kiddies
days.
that are listening, if you do your homework and you get really good at finding 0 days, that could be a career for you.
Oh, you could make a lot
You
of
could
money.
make a lot of money extorting Microsoft and other big companies.
Improper bug bounties.
All right. I we come back to this thing where, I got this fear that the ne'er-do-wells listening to this show are getting some good career advice.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Well, if
Education's a double-edged sword.
it
Yes,
is.
it is. Well, and you know what? That has been a fight in the security community for a long time. Take a look at YouTube, talking about them again.
Right.
Right? YouTube was all about hackers, security infosec professionals showing people how to break into sites, showing people how to use the tools, and explaining things like that, so that the systems administrators and blue teamers, protection people, would know, oh, this is what I should look for. And YouTube's like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't do this anymore. You're educating hackers.
Right.
Well,
So
one other thing that we need to clarify for Carl and for a lot of other people is, if I gave you a pointer to this exploit, then you as a developer, because I know you, Carl, could probably spend the time to figure it out most of the way, if not all the way.
Yeah.
But you'd have to really dig. It would take a long time. It's not like Lego system where you just put things together. You're going to have to figure out, there might be determinism involved. You're going to have to figure out how to hook the NTOS kernel. It's doable. It's possible, but it involves backflips.
Yeah, they make it sound like they tripped over it, like they just happened to see it while they were opening Notepad, and oh my god, right? But
well, they probably had the source because Microsoft has a program where they will share the source to Windows. I know with MVPs, like I think we're all MVPs, we can request that. But I'm not so sure how somebody who isn't, an insider or whatever would get access to that. But you know what? They're ex-spies.
Actually, if you take something and you get it to respond to a harness program and fuzz it, send it data it doesn't expect, and you get back, it throws up on itself. That's usually where you're going to go. And then you got to figure out how to exploit that. But it's not an easy process to do. It's easy to talk about.
Yeah.
But it's not easy to do. And that's why we're in a situation where you keep hearing about this shortage of security professionals.
Right.
And it's a shortage of every type of security professional. But the auditors, the people who go through and check the box, that's not the critical shortage. The critical shortage is the people who can go and look at a system and make it secure. Developers who know security.
Right.
Network designers and architects who know security. That's because you got to think like a hacker.
Right.
You got to be in that mind in order to figure out the things that they're going to do that no one knows about.
You have to find the vulnerabilities, and a lot of times that requires imagination and creativity and
thinking
solving.
like the attacker.
Right.
Well, and then factoring that into the timeline, I think that's a big issue too.
Yeah.
Like when you sit down with your project manager and go, "Hey, I'm going to take an extra week taking a look at security things that may or may not happen." They go,
Yeah,
I think you're going to add these 3 new buttons and get that out the door earlier is what you're going to do. Right?
Yeah.
So
you can put the word secure on one of the buttons if you want.
right. If it makes you feel better. Speaking of which, I don't know. Well,
speaking of non sequiturs, let's talk about Russia.
I thought we already were.
I was going to say, do we ever stop talking
No,
about
I
Russia,
think
honestly?
every show could be about Russia.
So, yeah, well, and we will move on to the UAE soon too. But so new pieces of malware. So interesting thing to watch the malware landscape as it evolves. So we see things early on in like VirusTotal as we see documents coming in, and it's literally malware designers creating their malware and or maldocs as they're called, and putting them up in VirusTotal to see if their detection rates are at 0 so that they can send them out. So there's a new one out there noted as Mirror Blast, which is a weaponized Excel document, which currently they're attributing to Russia, which has, according to the article we're looking at here, a 0 detection rate. Which seems scary. So what that means is someone could send you an Excel document and you'll get it and open it up. It is going to tell you there's active content in that document, right? It's going to say, do you want to enable macros? If you say yes, then at that point you're compromised, right? There's antivirus won't find it at this point, etc. But there's still that human element, right? You still need to click, yeah, I want to enable the content in this document that I wasn't expecting from a person I don't know. And I think that's
or who poses, or who's taken over the mailbox of a person I know, and has determined that they're willing to accept an Excel from me because they've done it in the past.
Again, it comes down to not opening those email attachments, kids.
Yeah, or call the person up. Hey, Dwayne, you sent me an email with an Excel. Was that you? And if he says no, it's like, okay, let's talk.
Right.
Right,
and if it was yes, then it's like, okay, tell me the title and why. Why do you have macros in this?
I did that. I pulled that trick on a hacker who started a Facebook message thing with me, posing as, one of my friends. And I said, I remember being on a camping trip with one of these friends, and I said, hey, do you remember that camping trip we went on? And of course the person said, yeah. I said, where was that again?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the last time I heard from that person.
He's like, he's on to me.
It was in the woods.
Yeah.
Where all of our camping trips.
Wrong! We were in a hotel room.
Well, they could have said, I don't know. I was too drunk to remember.
Yeah, you don't drink. After about an hour of no response, I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. Bye-bye.
See ya.
So when I was in high school, there was kids who were super into the Grateful Dead. And one of them told me a story. He was at a concert, and this guy who looked way too straight-laced to be at a Dead concert walked up and said, "Hey, kid, do you know where I can buy something good?" And he's like, "Sure. What's the third verse of Sugar?" And the guy's like, "What?" And he's like, "Narc."
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Hey, you know what the Deadhead said after the acid wore off? God, this music sucks.
Now the hate mail comes in.
Yeah, before you send me email, I love the Dead. I play Dead tunes when I go do my shows and everything. So, but we're
gonna have to.
You gotta laugh.
Post
though.
a video of you playing.
You gotta laugh though.
The Dead tune.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't Deadercise. If that's where I draw the line.
Do you have a Deadhead sticker on your Cadillac?
I don't. No. All right, Don Henley. Nice. I love that song by the Boys of Summer by Don Henley.
That's a good song.
Awesome tune. All right. So
Russia.
but this was a Russian cybercrime gang. So they think. This Mirror Blast Excel thing.
Yes. And attribution's really hard, honestly.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of politics around creating law.
Solving murders is hard too, but we do it. Well, we go and convict people and send them to prison for life and even execute them over a conviction that might not have been 100%.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do better. We should do better. But we with this, we say, and I've even said attribution's really hard, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try and that they shouldn't be repercussions.
Here's what they say. The actors behind the campaign appear to be TA-505, an active Russian threat group that has a long history of creativity in the way they lace Excel documents in malspam campaigns.
So what's interesting about that is it's like doing detective work based on their MO. Like, we typically see them send emails like this.
Right.
We typically see them hosted in, DigitalOcean. We
Right.
typically see, whatever it is. But a lot of that information is public.
Mm-hmm.
So I could emulate, the same APT and come up with a lot of the same code. Now, unless I've reversed a lot of their specific attacks.
But it'll slow them down.
Signatures.
If they have to change their MO every single time, it will slow them down. It'll raise their costs. What we should be doing is the government should say, we're going to punish the source countries and we're going to add sanctions or tariffs or whatever you want to do to the country in the billions for every million in extortion they ransomware or for all the destruction. So Russia, your people did 500 million last month in ransomware and other destruction, and we've attributed to you 500 billion in sanctions is coming your way. Clean up your act, fix it. And we should pay the same penalty. If we have it coming from the United States, we should pay the same penalty if we do that for other countries, because then everyone's got skin in the game. The countries have something to lose if they don't clean it up. But right now, it's a safe haven in Russia.
All right, so I'll give you an audio hint for the next story. You ready for this?
I like it.
Hello, this is the bank manager, and I need you to send $35 million from my account A to my account B. Otherwise, you're fired.
What is deepfake?
This is a fascinating story.
It is fascinating.
So AI voice cloning, this is off of Forbes. AI voice cloning is used in a heist in the UAE, according to Dubai investigators, amidst warnings about cyber criminals using new technology, which is deep voice. So we've all heard of deep fakes, right? You take someone else's face and put it on, I don't know, Sigourney Weaver and Aliens, and it looks kind of weird. You're like, wow, look at that. Carl's, torturing an alien.
Yeah.
This is now having the ability to get enough voice samples from somebody where you legitimately could have them say anything, right? Literally while you're typing it comes out and sounds like the real person talking.
But you have to get enough samples to get idiom and to understand what they say, how they would say it.
Podcast that has been running every week, maybe, potentially.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So there was
the word tomahawk would come up a lot.
a lot.
So there was an Adobe tool and a product that, and I think I can link to this. After 20 minutes of listening, a new Adobe tool can make you say anything. So there's actually an Adobe tool that, if you want to make Natalie Portman yell obscenities at your neighbors, they say, what if Gary Busey could leave your mother a sexy voicemail on her birthday? Oh, I don't want to think about, God, why did they, who writes this stuff?
He might do that if you just ask him.
But
Didn't you censor yourself on that before you were writing?
I know, I probably should have, but this article is from 2016.
Yeah, the technology is only gotten better. So what's interesting about this is it was still a grift. It was this particular person pretending to be a bank manager, calling up and saying, "Hey, listen, I'm actually purchasing another company, and you're gonna get a contact from my lawyer." Right. So there was a whole story here,
wow.
right, where they were like, hey, and they've talked to this guy all the time. They recognized his voice. He said, I'm going to need $35 million. We're going to be buying this company. This is what that company does, whatever. You're going to get an email from this lawyer. And sure enough, an email from that law firm came in, said, hey, I know you've talked to our client. Here's the accounts that we need to transfer data to, or transfer money to. So it was all
seemed legit.
Yeah.
It did. So the whoever these actors were, they really understood the process, right? That you would follow. There was no red flags there. And just being able to now fake the voice of this director in this company, sealed the deal where they're like, oh yeah, I talk to this guy all the time. Right.
So this was possible before with somebody who was a talented mimic.
Sure.
So, the Rich Littles, for those who are older, or the I can't
Rich
remember.
Little, who everybody just under 40 just went, who? What?
Who?
I'm probably under
But you know what I'm
50
talking
actually.
About. So who are the mimics of today? Who are the people who do voices now?
Oh, well, okay. So there's, I know them
Carl
by face and I recognize them.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
I'm
I know
too
who you
old.
mean. Yeah. So Rich Little though.
Oh yeah. Well, because I'm old.
So somebody who's a really good mimic who can do an imitation impersonation could have done this 25, 30 years ago.
Oh, sure.
But then you'd need a very specific skill set. Now, a teenage girl can do it and pretend to be a 45-year-old man.
It's crazy. Adobe Voco, that's the tool that was announced in 2016, and I heard about it on Radiolab. And the guy did a demo of it, and he basically typed in a text-to-speech thing right on the stage live from his own samples, and it spoke in his voice, and people were horrified. There hasn't been a whole lot of press about this because obviously, the things you could do with it for nefarious purposes.
So what can either of you, and I'm stymied right now, but can either of you think of a legitimate reason you'd use this?
No, well, yeah, okay, I can. If you've got a podcast or something like that, and somebody says something that, or they forgot to say something, but they're not available to re-record, right?
Okay.
So you could say, I could just put that in. I could just have you say that. And with the person's permission, it's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. But obviously, if you have the power to do that, you might suggest that as an audio editor, and they go, What? You make me say anything? I'll sue you up and down and blah, blah.
Well, you could
really, Patrick and I don't exist. Carl's just been making up these two voices.
He's just a fast typist. Really fast.
Yeah, exactly.
So
listen, I'll make Patrick say something really smart. Go ahead, Patrick.
Indubitably.
Technology,
degree,
science,
quantum.
So maybe I want to have my audiobook read by Winston Churchill.
Oh, well, okay.
I would have Samuel L. read mine because that would be awesome.
So not only
with or without explanation.
Not only does this exist for audio, but for video too. So you could take that audio and have somebody who is giving a speech or whatever, and there are tools that will take the audio and make their lips in the video mouth the words that you've had them say. So yeah, therein lies the deep fake that we've been talking about.
Well, another valid use might be if I had an assistant like an Alexa or one of those, and I wanted to
Alexa or Umbrella,
and I wanted to use somebody in my family's voice.
Yeah,
who's passed away.
Yeah.
And I had enough samples that I could train it to be my grandfather.
That's pretty cool. I mean, okay, so there are legitimate entertainment purposes to it, but but seriously dangerous
They're
stuff.
few and far between.
Yeah.
Though. We had to stretch for those.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that's the weird stuff. I'm like, okay, who would really do this? Like, it's not like you could be like, hey, we as our company are gonna do a commercial and we're gonna have Winston Churchill, right?
Yeah, but machetes have very few valid uses, but they have some. So,
especially near Halloween.
Okay, we're back to Patrick. Right. Yeah.
Hey, I'm here to do a job, and I'm going to do it. I'm the crazy guy.
All right, so let's talk about the telco thing.
Yes. The telco thing's interesting. So state-backed hackers breach telcos with custom malware. And this is previously unknown state-sponsored actors deploying a novel tool set and attacking targeted telecommunications providers and IT firms in South Asia. So it's the interesting part of this attack is, and obviously, everybody who's listening to the podcast doesn't necessarily have to worry about, your AT&T or Verizon telco being breached or anything like that right now. But one of the reasons we brought this story up is because these state actors decided to target the telcos with some custom sort of written software, malware, backdoors, that sort of stuff, and some off-the-shelf backdoors like Cobalt strikes, beacons, and that sort of stuff using Metasploit interpreter shells, that sort of thing. So it was kind of a mix of both. But the really interesting thing here that they did is they had reverse shell, for lack of a better term. Yeah, they had full control of pretty much everything in the environment.
Okay.
And they also had command and control. They had a command and control communication, right? So what we typically in the business call a C2 infrastructure, where you'll beacon out of a network you've breached, and you could beacon out over HTTPS. You could beacon out over DNS. There's all sorts of different protocols that are always allowed out of most networks, where you could just beacon out and say, hey, I'm interested in running a command. What do you want me to run? And we could say, go tell me all the users on this system, or go tell me what you have access to, or whatever. And the software does its thing. And it checks in every 10 minutes. So you still have access to those systems.
Okay.
What's interesting here is they said, if you can't check in with the C2, the jig may be up, right? Somebody may have found that communication and shut down access to our command and control. So what I want you to do is spin up a cellular connection, because they're in a telco.
Oh.
So they would go and connect to the back-end cellular systems and then have it connect to specific mobile devices.
What?
And then route through those back out to the internet.
What?
So it's an awesome vector if you think about it. Like, they're just using the telco's internet, and telco's like, aha, we found you, we're going to shut down access to these. And they're like, okay, you do realize you have like 1 billion devices that can connect to the internet. Let me find one. And it would go find one and communicate out that way.
Crazy.
Which is interesting. It's a very interesting tactic.
One thing that occurs to me as I'm looking at bleepingcomputer.com and all these, every one of these stories, and let's face it, there are hundreds. I mean, we just talked about 7 today, but there are hundreds of these stories every week, and everyone has a unique graphic, some piece of art that looks like it's right out of a spy movie, or it's like an anonymous masked person or some evil looking thing. If you're a graphic designer, you should be high on the hog right now, because there's so many opportunities to come up with these composite pictures of
dark, ominous.
Well, maybe there's only 3,000 of them and they just keep rotating them.
Maybe that's
maybe, I don't know. I love it because it gives me new backgrounds for my my desktop, which is kind of nice.
Okay.
New wallpapers. Yeah.
And techniques.
Yeah, that's right. Career advice. All right. Speaking of crazy graphics with Halloween themed evil stuff on it, the record.media has a story. New Snap MC group extorts companies after short 30-minute hacks. I don't know what's more interesting to me right here. Snap MC, which sounds like a 1980s hip hop act. Or
like a DJ I'd listen to.
Yeah.
Snap MC.
Snap MC. Or 30-minute hacks, like short 30-minute hacks. I thought hacks were short by definition.
No.
No.
So what we're looking at here is when you go after a target, you can take the long game or you can go hard and fast. Think about like robbing a bank. If you want to rob a bank, you can go, we're in and out in 3 minutes. Or you can tunnel and hope they never find the tunnel into the vault and take the gold out slowly and replace it with bricks.
I see. Like a long time ago, we had a story about an aerobics instructor who infiltrated some company with the goal of taking some money or something, but only after like months of
like years of teaching yoga,
years of teaching aerobics online, which to me baffles my mind. But all right, okay. So these are 30-minute in and out hacks.
Yeah, so they're only hitting play. I mean, they make it sound like they've chosen a target and they take only 30 minutes and then they hack them. They're looking at 1,000 targets and they're finding the ones they can get in on quickly, and then they're just getting out quickly.
I see.
Yeah, agreed 100%. And you read these articles and it's like, wow, this SnapMC group can pick any company on the planet and in seconds can breach them, and then gives them 30 minutes to reply. And there's a couple things to break down there. A 30-minute reply, why 30 minutes? Well, you typically in most larger organizations are going to have a security team, an administrative staff, maybe a SOC, which is going to be watching what's going on. And you need an incident.
A SOC?
Security operations.
Okay.
And you typically are going to have an incident response team. And that hopefully you have an incident response team and an incident response plan as to what happens once you get breached.
And it's not 30 minutes to implement.
No, and frankly, of most of the companies we talk to, I'd say, what, Patrick, 20% of them have an incident response plan? Have a what would you do if you got breached?
Yeah,
right.
They have a prayer plan. They all have a prayer plan.
Right. They just go, oh yeah, well, nobody's going to be targeting us. So the 30 minutes here is interesting because if you have an incident response plan, you may actually be able to say, okay, yeah, we saw the breach, we were able to isolate systems, et cetera. But if you're one of the 80% of companies out there without an incident response plan, this group's probably going to make a decent amount of money, right? The other interesting thing I want to bring up here is that Patrick is absolutely right. This is not hey, they have this instant hacky ray gun that they point at any company and, automatically they get access. HackyRaygun.com. They're exploiting something called CVE 2019-18935.
Okay.
That's an exploit in, if I remember correctly, a Telerik UI component. So it's just a dev component in an ASP.NET website. It's very specific. So, okay. And it was a breach from 2019, 2 years ago. So why does this still work? Because people aren't patching their dev controls, right? So all this group can do is say, hey, listen, we have this really quick hack that came out 2 years ago, isn't new. Hell, it is considered super old. We're going to weaponize it. Super easy. There's probably a bazillion sites out there that show you exactly how to do it. And then we're just going to jump on Google and we're going to do a search for anybody using Telerik controls with this version. They're going to come up with 1,000 sites. Right. And then they're going to target the first one, and then they're going to target the second one, and they're going to keep going down the list, right?
I see.
So it's not super sophisticated. It's literally anybody could go find this code on, ExploitDB, go run it against a company that they Google. And this may sound far-fetched. I can tell you, not a lot of detail, but what I can tell you is in our day job, we found an exploit very similar to this for a particular customer, and we did a quick search on the internet, and we may have found it at a lot of other places.
Oh wow!
That I can't talk about. Where within seconds, if we wanted to, we could pull down credentials and financial data and all sorts of stuff.
That's why they hire you guys. Yeah. All right. So for the final thing, I'm sharing something with you guys and with everybody. This is my pièce de résistance of Halloween pranks. It's a 1:36 video. Are you watching it now? I call it the floating head of death. What I did was I took a...
Is that a Pepper's ghost?
Yeah, sort of. I took a transparent projector screen and put it on the inside of a glass door. That is the first door, and then, of course, that we have the big front door, which is behind that. And then I have a projector in the rafters, sort of projecting down with a mirror on my face onto that in the door. I have speakers under the porch, and I have a camera, a security camera that I'm watching and listening to, and I'm in the basement. And I've got a TV with the security camera on it, and I've got a video camera right on top of that. So as I'm looking at the TV, it looks like I'm looking right into the video camera. So
that is awesome.
I can see kids coming to the door, and of course, I keep my hand over the video camera so it's just black, so they don't see anything. And as soon as they ring the doorbell, I take my hand away and I go, "Hey!" And now I've got this 4-foot head, my head projected into the door. I'm looking right at them, and they don't know what the hell is going on.
That is awesome. That is the reaction from those kids is priceless.
Yeah. So now I got so I have to say, I have to come clean. It was staged. After Halloween was over, I had my daughters and their friends, do the typical reaction.
They did a great job.
And of course, they did a great job of acting, but it was great. The YouTube comments were like, "Those little brats, I would have egged them," But come on, it was funny. All right, guys, that's a show. Thanks very much. Happy Halloween, everybody. We'll be back next week.